Welcome to the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Join us each week as we sit down with the founder of Alchemy Wealth Management and author of Your Fiscal Physical, Ryan Nelson. Tune in to gain valuable insights and practical tips as we simplify complex financial concepts into digestible lessons. From budgeting to retirement planning, this podcast is your go-to resource for mastering financial literacy.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Fiscal Physical Podcast. My name is Aaron. I am here with Ryan Nelson, and we are going to talk about some financial topics today. Ryan, specifically one. Actually, let me digress here. How are you today, Ryan? How rude of me.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, man. I'm doing quite well. Thank you so much, and happy to be here. Happy to dive in here. Today's topic, we're going to talk about power of attorney, what it is, and why you can't ignore it or shouldn't ignore it here. So. A little backstory about myself. I have my sister is a lawyer. She's actually the county prosecutor for my hometown, or my home county, if you will. So, she's I guess has if I need financial or legal advice, that's where I go. She'll normally give me a little bit of free stuff, and then she's like, "Nah, you got to go talk to somebody else," like kind of thing. So I get a little bit of, and I know that one of the things that she has like a checklist that she's like given me of like, oh, cool, you need to do these things. And one is like really explore power of attorney. Make sure that this is set up like to be correct. Make sure you're comfortable with it. Revisit it at different points of your life. So, and I'm like, cool, awesome, nodding along. Yes, great. And I'm like, I don't really know of what that exactly means. Yeah. So I'm hoping today, Ryan, I mean, you're not an attorney, I wouldn't say, a legal professional, but hopefully you have a little bit more insight into what that is and kind of break it down for us there.
Yeah, I know enough to be dangerous. So like you said, this would be something, I wouldn't construe this as legal advice, and definitely go talk to your own attorney. But let's at least share with the listeners what I do know, what little I do know.
Yeah.
So what is a power of attorney? So it's a legal document that allows one person to act on behalf of another person. So it is a legal document. I think this confuses a lot of people. Like, same with a trust. What is a trust? It's a legal document, right? A will, it's a legal document. And so power of attorney sounds like this weird, complicated thing. It's a document that allows something to happen. So in this particular legal document, it allows one person to act on another person's behalf. It can be limited or broad, and it can be given just for certain periods of time. So it could have like an ending date to it, or not be in effect yet and go into effect at some point in the future. So there's a few different types of power of attorney. So there's general power of attorneys, limited power of attorneys, durable, springing, medical, financial. You might hear a bunch of different ones. But so a general power of attorney is generally going to have broad authority over financial and legal matters. A limited power of attorney is going to have power of attorney, but for a limited scope. Okay. So sometimes you'll see this if you need to have somebody else sign like real estate closing documents for you or something, you can give power of attorney for them for the specific scope. And then durable power of attorney means it remains in effect if the person becomes incapacitated. Whereas springing power of attorney only goes into effect after a specific event, usually incapacitation. So one, I could just set up now. It's going to, it could just set it up and it's going to be in effect like sort of theoretically forever. The other one, I might say, hey, I don't want it to go into effect unless I become incapacitated, right? So that'd be springing it springs into effect. You can think of it. And then there's also medical or like a healthcare POA. And so that's going to allow somebody to make decisions regarding healthcare. So maybe you become, again, incapacitated or aren't able to make decisions on your own. Who's going to step in and make those decisions on your behalf? It's going to be whoever is a medical POA for you, or power of attorney. POA is an acronym for power of attorney. Yeah. You'll see POA a lot.
Perfect.
Right. I know very little about healthcare POAs, but I know a decent amount about financial power of attorneys,
your wheelhouse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So why is a financial power of attorney important? So if someone it allows someone else to kind of continuously manage your finances if for some reason you become incapacitated. So, you might be thinking, well, if I'm incapacitated, why is that really that important? The reality is, yeah, you probably still have bills. You probably still need to file your taxes, right? So there's all sort of these just almost like routine tasks regarding to your finances that right now you're the only one that can like legally do, right? And this allows you give somebody else permission to, file taxes on your behalf, make investment decisions on your behalf. If somebody was to call me and say, hey, I need money out of, Aaron's account, Aaron's in a coma, I'd be like, well, I can't just give you Aaron's money, and they're like, yeah, but he wanted, we need to pay for his kid's college. And it's like, well, I got to be Aaron that takes his money out of his account, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you set up the appropriate power of attorneys, you could then designate somebody else to have that power, and then they could call up, have that power, say, hey, we need this money from Aaron's account to pay for, his son's college. Boom, that'd be allowed, right? So those would be some examples of why you might want to have this set up. And it helps avoid, because in the event that let's say you became incapacitated, there are processes that you might be thinking, well, like, that's crazy. Like, if I become incapacitated, surely there's a process that allows something to happen, right? And the reality is, yes, there is, but it can be this time-consuming process of going through court-appointed guardianship. And so again, if you want to avoid that time-consuming part and the costs of court, and just and make sure it's done the way you want, so you get to assign who you want as opposed to have the court assign somebody, this gives you a little more control and it can be more cost-effective. So I'd say it's a critical component of like a comprehensive estate plan. Typically, if you go to an estate planning attorney and you have them build you an estate plan, they're going to build you out a trust, usually what's called a spillover will. But these power of attorney documents are also going to be a part of that for most estate planning packages.
No, that's good, man. And I think that we've done a couple episodes on estate planning or similar, like will and probate and these different things too. So I feel like this is just one of the factors that kind of ties into just, I don't know, would this fall under estate planning?
I consider this estate planning.
Okay, that's what I would kind of think of it as well too. When I was writing this, I was like, well, we've kind of touched on estate planning. We maybe have hit on power of attorney before too, but I feel like you hit on just in exactly this scenario I was thinking of. I was like, hey, like, if I for some reason become incapacitated and maybe I didn't have these things set up, like, okay, cool. Like the last thing that you want to do, and like maybe your loved one or somebody is in these states, is have to go through a court-appointed process to somebody who maybe doesn't have exactly your best interest in mind too. And it's kind of sad to think about if that's the end of the situation. Plus, it puts more stress on individuals in a trying time already too. So like having something like this in place, a power of attorney, like, seems like it might not be a bad idea.
Right. And you can imagine there's probably plenty of people who maybe say, maybe they're separated, they have, a child, and they have maybe a sibling, and they say, man, my sibling's not financially responsible. I'm no longer married. If something were to happen to me, I wouldn't want this to like default go to my sibling, or like, I wouldn't want to like have to rely on this court process. I would want to be able to hand select maybe a good friend of mine, or something like that. Like, I think they'd be more responsible or better suited to do this task. Or if you imagine maybe you have, 3 kids, and, it might make more sense to, are they all equally literate as far as finances go? Maybe you make the one who's the most financially literate your financial power of attorney. Maybe you make the one who's most like medically literate the medical power of attorney, right? Yeah. So, but again, if you doing this? So a great question is like, when should you set this up? You should do it before you need it,
right?
And when you're in proper like state of mind, right? So when you're working, when you're like 100%. Is when you want to be setting this up, and then you can effectively make these decisions, determine kind of who would be best able to represent you, if needed, in these different areas of your life.
No, that's Good. That's good. That's good stuff, man. I think it really kind of breaks down like the importance of it just in general. So, excellent. Anything else you want to touch on with this one here, Ryan?
No, I think that about covers it. So yeah, just an important piece of an estate planning sort of project. So as you go through this estate planning process, this should be a piece of that process. And again, most people should be doing this before you need it. So you might be listening to this saying, "Oh, I don't need that." It's like, you're right. You don't need it. That's why you should be setting it up now, because you might need it tomorrow.
Exactly. No,
you just
like
don't know
that future planning. Like we think about it, like with financial planning, and like how all these pieces like kind of fit into that puzzle, if you will. And I think it's really cool as we do these topics of how they, you can kind of intertwine. I mentioned before they intertwine with past episodes and probably future episodes that we're going to do, just to kind of give you that, increase that financial literacy just overall, and just planning in general. And so I think it's neat that we're able to kind of do this. I mean, we're into the 90s for episodes here, which is crazy to think about. But I'm like, oh, we can go back to this one, and this is kind of where it ties in and such too. So good stuff as always, Ryan. I hope everybody learned something, or at least got intrigued by this to do a bit more research on your end there. And we'll go ahead and pause, and we'll be right back on the other side of this. Everybody hang tight.
And now, to put the personal in personal finance.
Welcome back to this side of the Fiscal Physical podcast here. I have a question for Ryan. It is a financial question, so that's good. That feeds right into the theme of this podcast. Ryan, growing up, we've reminisced on this podcast a few times about childhood stuff, and what do we want to be when we grew up, and all these different things. But this one, I'm curious what your idea of when you were a kid, what did you consider rich? Like, as far as like seeing, like, cool, that person's rich kind of thing. Like,
I don't. For some reason, like an income level comes to mind. I don't know that I knew what a net worth is, or like even like how much $1 million or $100,000 or anything was. But I feel like I always, like, for some reason, like aspired to make like $100,000 a year. It's a nice round number. I'm not sure why that particular number, but that's like, for some reason, I always like thought like that was the number. Like if you could make $100,000 a year, you'd be like golden, right?
Yeah.
So I always thought that's like the first thing that comes to mind when I think of like quote unquote being rich, which is interesting because I don't know, most people probably think of like a boats or like fancy cars or the nice watch or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. What about you?
100 grand. I love it. It's funny. I think back on it when I was growing up, and like mine was even like smaller about like what rich was. I remember asking my dad, I was like, because I there's one time when I was growing up, I wanted to go to this fast food place. My dad was like, no, we're going to eat at home, like whatever. And I was like, oh, one day when I'm rich, I'm going to eat whatever I want. Like, and he's like, well, if you get there, you could do it. And in my mind, I was like, one day I'm going to make $300 a day, and then I can do whatever I want with that.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's a good goal to have, growing up. So in my mind, $300 a day was rich to me for some reason. I never even did the math on what exactly that like.
I'll do it for you.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. What are we working with? Yeah. $109,500. Probably pre-tax. I didn't really think. At 7 or 8 years old, thinking about taxes or anything like that. But in my mind, I was like, if I make $300 a day, I can eat all the fast food I want. Like, I don't have to ever eat. Like, I can get whatever I want. So that number, for whatever reason, $300 a day, I was like, that's rich.
That's funny. Yeah. So it sounds like we landed on similar numbers there as kids. That's weird.
It was funny when we were outlining this and everything, and I was like, I wonder what Ryan's number, because I think about like growing up, like I knew what I had heard of like millionaires and certain things. Like there weren't as many, I think, billionaire talk when I was younger. Right. Like, but there was millionaire, and I was like, oh yeah, well that's just like unfathomable wealth, I guess to me. That just didn't make sense. But I was like, oh, breaking it down, $300 a day, 100,000, 100 grand. Yeah, that could probably be done. So kind of interesting there that we kind of got two different paths, but like landed at the same destination.
I'm sure a large part of that depends on your upbringing, right? And like how much Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. What kind of experience you have as kids would probably greatly shape that, and we probably had like fairly similar upbringings, so makes sense. I suppose
kind of makes sense where we land versus somebody who maybe grew up a little bit more affluent, like $100,000. They're like, you mean my
$100,000 a day?
A day? Yeah, exactly. But awesome. But I challenge listeners. I'd be curious. What did you think? I mean, what do you still think is rich? Like grow nowadays? Like I'm sure we get a ton of different answers as far as that goes. But as always, please let us know what you guys want to hear. If you guys are liking this, hating this, like, subscribe wherever you guys get your podcasts. These drop every Tuesday morning on all the different platforms. So I'm looking forward to continue to grow our listener base. And Ryan, anything to say before we wrap up here?
As always, stay the course.
Thank you for joining us for the Fiscal Physical Podcast. Until next time, happy listening. And as always, stay the course. If you have a question or topic suggestions, please email us at podcast@alchemywealth.com. If you enjoyed today's discussion, subscribe to the podcast to ensure you never miss an episode. And consider leaving us a rating and review on your favorite platform. This helps other listeners like you find the show. For more resources, you can visit Alchemy Wealth Management's website at www.alchemywealth.com or find your Fiscal Physical, the book, on Amazon. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention that personal finance is just that, personal. Please don't take anything we say as advice. The preceding content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It's not an offer or a solicitation, nor should it be construed or relied upon for tax, legal, or investment advice. It doesn't consider your personal financial situation or objectives and may not be suitable for you.